Bitcoin astrology for the month of January 2024. All right, guys. Well, obviously, we are in a very bullish formation here. We are hitting a higher high. And I am thinking that we are heading up further. Now, watch this video all the way through because I'm going to be explaining a lot of really interesting things here, a lot of interesting analysis, including the Bitcoin astrology. But I'm personally thinking we are heading into a topping formation. Things are looking good. Bitcoin and altcoins are potentially heading up this month and even into the next 3 to 4 months because the Fed is likely to keep rates paused until March of this year, most likely. That's what the statistics are saying, and that is historically bullish. Now I want to take a look at the Bitcoin chart, which is this chart in orange, as well as the altcoins in blue here. Now we are potentially, in my opinion, and this is actually based on technical analysis, and also the astrology is looking bearish in the summer of 2024. But I'm under the camp of thinking that Bitcoin is topping out this month and potentially the next 4 months. Oftentimes during that period, the altcoins go on a rampage towards the end. And so I want to take a look at previous topping formations, such as 2021, back in kind of April. Bitcoin hit the all-time high at that time. And then what did it do? It hit a lower high. Well, it corrected, and then we got a lower high. But what's very interesting is what did altcoins do at that same time? Well, altcoins went up, and then they corrected, but they actually hit a higher high. So it's very interesting that Bitcoin corrected, hit that lower high when altcoins hit a higher high, okay? Altcoins kept pumping. Now, we also saw something similar back in 2017. We saw Bitcoin hit the all-time high, and then of course the altcoins went on a rampage, and then Bitcoin corrected and hit a lower high, while at that same time, January 1st, the altcoins literally hit their all-time high. They hit a much higher high there. So the altcoins rampage right at the end when Bitcoin hits a lower high after its all-time high there. So if we are coming into a topping formation with Bitcoin very soon, potentially this month or the next few months. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. There's a couple people in the comments that are like, blah, 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 blah. Like, how do you know this? And why aren't you giving more clear information? Well, because I don't have a crystal ball. I've been doing pretty well with my predictions, but I predict when I have clarity and when there's certainty and when a lot of the astrology as well as the technical analysis line up. However, like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a psychic. So I'm just doing my best here. And, so we could see Bitcoin topping this month or the next 4 months or so. And the reason I'm saying that is the Fed is pausing for the next few months. Historically, that's bullish. So Bitcoin could be heading up in the next few months. But if they do, when they start cutting, we usually see one last pump and then a dump and a major dumping. So we could see major dumping heading into the summer of this year. And that aligns with the astrology. So that's very nice. Okay. So what we could potentially see is something like this. Now I don't have the timing exact here. This is, kind of fudging it here. But we could see a peak and then a dump at some point and potentially a lower high. Now this could actually be more out into June, maybe May, something along there. If it's quite bullish, we could head out into July of this year. But at some point, so we're going to hit higher high, and then potentially when we hit this lower high, we could get a massive altcoin run. So that's just food for thought, something I wanted to share. Now let's take a look at the global astrology where the planets are right now. Really good news is that Jupiter is now direct. It went direct a few days ago, and recently today Mercury is direct as well, and that's good news. That's potentially that's some added bullishness there. Now I want to talk about Pluto, this planet right here, because it is in Capricorn right now, but when we head forward on January 20th, it's going to head into Aquarius. All right, that's the sign here. And why is that significant? Well, in 2008, Pluto switched signs from Sagittarius to Capricorn. Well, what happened at that time? Well, we saw the great financial crisis of 2008. So it affected the world in a major, major way. The last time Pluto dipped into Aquarius, it just dipped in for about a month last year. What do we have? Right before it happened, we saw the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. All right, it has a lot to do with technology. So we could see more potential collapses of some sort with technological banks, or collapses of other things related to technology. Geez, one thing that actually comes to mind is potentially, this is world-changing, crazy events that are possible is power outages, or even the internet going down, or something along those lines. So that would be the worst-case scenario. But we, the elites did have that cyber polygon event, and that was all about the internet going down and all of the solutions that these amazing elites are coming up with to save all of us. So they did have that event. I was wondering, like, oh, what's going on there? So Pluto, the planet of transformation, is going into the sign of Aquarius, which has to do with technology. Crypto is potentially a great thing to be invested in, because even if we did have a crazy event like that, if you have your crypto stored on a cold storage wallet, then you can continue to hold that crypto even in a crazy blackout event, or a grid down or internet down sort of event. So crypto, if you do it properly, if you know how to store your crypto properly and safely, that can be a very, very good thing. Now I want to talk about a video that I recorded a couple weeks ago where I talked in depth about a deep analysis. I don't know anyone else on the planet who's done this specifically, a deep analysis on Pluto transiting into Aquarius, or into a new sign. And it actually is doing this 3 times. It's transiting into Aquarius 1 time this year and 2 times in 2024. Let's take a look of this deep analysis I did in this video right here. All right, so these are the dates here. We already saw, these transit here earlier this year. And then January 20th, that's California time, or actually this is in Indonesian time. So Indonesian time, January 21st, United States time, January 20th, Pluto's ingressing again into Aquarius. Then it's going to take all the way till September for it to retrograde back into Capricorn, and then one last time, a 3rd time, it's going to ingress again into Aquarius. So another time Pluto transited a new sign 3 times was all the way back in 1937. All right, so I went back in the history books and I found this information. So let me show you this. 3 times into 0 degrees of that sign. So these are the specific dates that it ingressed into this 0 degrees. And then I looked at the Dow Jones. Since we don't have the history for Bitcoin going back this far, I looked at the Dow Jones, and typically Bitcoin follows the Dow Jones pretty closely historically. So I looked at the Dow Jones from 1937 to 1938. This is what we found. Now we want to pay attention to this second blue line. This is where we're headed to on January 20th. These the first blue line was basically where we were when Pluto entered Aquarius in March of 2023. So that was back here, and we did see the Dow Jones dump, and then it's now pumping. So pay attention to the second blue line here. That's basically where a similar place we are potentially headed to. So pumping into when it hits that blue line. Another time that Pluto ingressed to a new sign, 3 times, that was 1912 to 1914. And then additionally, also, it happened in 1956. So I put all 3 of these together, and we came up with this. These are the screenshots of the Dow Jones with the vertical lines representing Pluto transiting a new sign. So what typically happens historically? Well, we see the market kind of hitting a low and then a pump before the ingress into the new sign. So we see that here in 1956. The second one is 1937. We see a dump, and then we're pumping into the ingress into Aquarius. Now, one thing that's interesting is if you look at this one, we see the second blue line. Markets are actually dumping. So it's interesting that the Bitcoin ETF is, potentially going to happen on January 10th, around there. Now, whether that happens or not, we'll see what happens. But so Bitcoin could be peaking around that time, and then we could actually see dumping in the second half of January. That's just what I'm thinking, because things often get bullish. Everyone's thinking the ETF could get approved, so that's potentially the reason why Bitcoin's pumping right now. And then when it actually happens, oftentimes, we look back in the history books, things dump after that. Bitcoin dumps. And one example is that the Coinbase IPO was released at the peak of Bitcoin back in May of 2021. I remember that day very clearly, and everyone was buying the Coinbase IPO. Everyone was buying Bitcoin. That was the literal peak. That was the literal top. And then what happened? We dumped like crazy in the summer shortly after. Another thing to note for the month of January is Bitcoin is heading into these retracement levels, the Fibonacci, from the peak to the bottom back in November 2022. These retracement levels is typically where we get a lot of resistance. There has to be an incredible amount of bullishness to get through these retracement levels. Could we potentially, this is just food for thought, could we potentially, when the Bitcoin ETF is released, or when we get the update on that news, we're not sure if it's going to be positive or negative, is Bitcoin going to literally be at the retracement levels? Is it going to be literally at the 0.618, or is it even going to get to the 0.702 at 53,000? That's possible. We'll see. But that'll be very interesting, because if the Bitcoin, that's kind of what I'm thinking, because everyone's potentially buying Bitcoin, and retail potentially gets into the markets at retracement levels. They think everything's going to the moon up here at peaks, especially when if the Bitcoin ETF gets approved, everyone's going to buy in. That usually marks the peak, just like when the Coinbase IPO'd at the peak in 2021. So that's just what I'm thinking. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking. Now, good news is that in general, the astrology is very good for the Bitcoin ETF approval, but it's not 100% guarantee. Jupiter is trying the Bitcoin Mars on January 3rd. And then Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and that will sextile Saturn and trine Jupiter on January 9th through 12th, which is a very favorable minor grand trine alignment. Also, the January 11th new moon is in favorable close to trine to Uranus. However, there is one pesky unfavorable on the 10th itself with Mars square the Bitcoin moon that could indicate a denial. So we got to be prepared for, I don't have a crystal ball. We got to be prepared for both scenarios. Additionally, in the stars, the wealth planet Jupiter is sextile Saturn now within the orb of 3 degrees. This is a favorable aspect of balance and moderation. wealth and wisdom is in effect all the way through March. And one thing that's interesting is historically, more often than not, March, we typically see some lows in the markets in March. So that's why I'm kind of expecting us to be in some lows at that point. Could we head down to the 30s again with Bitcoin? It's definitely possible. But on the positive side, I would not expect any major crash for Bitcoin or for stocks while this positive transit is in effect. So now until about March, things are looking pretty good. We're probably not going to see any crazy like drops down to like 30K for Bitcoin or something like that, most likely. Now, previous of this sextile, we had 7% gains for the S&P 500. In 2008, we had a Jupiter-Saturn trine. Kind of a similar scenario, and things were overall pretty positive when that happened. All right, let's look more at the Bitcoin astrology. All right, here we're looking at the Bitcoin astrology. We have a very positive Uranus sextile to Bitcoin Uranus, and that is happening today, or no, tomorrow on January 3rd. Okay, and what we're seeing, we're already seeing Bitcoin hit a local new high, not an all-time high, but a local high right now. We're peaking out right now, and so very bullish currently. And we also have Pluto conjunct the Bitcoin Jupiter, which historically is very bullish. All right, and that's happening on January 7th. All right, this is exciting, good news here. We also have the Jupiter trine, the Bitcoin Mars, happening on January 3rd. Very bullish as well. What else do we got here? We are also heading into a full moon in January, around the time of the potential when everyone's expecting the Bitcoin ETF to be approved. And it's overall positive, so hopefully we do see that approval. We'll see what happens. There's no guarantees in this. We also have Saturn sextile the Bitcoin Mars, and that is positive. That's happening at the end of January. Could we still be pumping at the end of January? Maybe there's a couple last pumps. It's possible. I'm definitely not expecting it, but it's definitely possible we could see more altcoins running. Let's prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. Now, after the ETF news is released, we could see a Bitcoin correction. All right, so we could see a healthy correction. So I'm actually preparing for that. That's just what I'm thinking. But let me know in the comments below, what are you thinking? If you would like to get a deep astrological natal chart reading with me, I'll look at your personal astrology for the entirety of 2024. I've never done this before. I'm packing so much value into these sessions. If you haven't got a session with me, definitely get this one, because I'm also going to be revealing the Bitcoin astrology for the entirety of 2024. So you can plan when you want to buy, when you want to sell, to maximize your crypto profits in 2024. This year is going to be world changing. We are going to remember this year for generations. This is a colossal, major year of world changes. So it is the best time. I can't think of a better time, in all honesty and all transparency, to get a one-on-one session, especially if you've never gotten an astrology reading before. This is going to blow your mind. And boy, I am very confident that this will help you in 2024 to make it your greatest year yet, to make the greatest wealth you've potentially ever made in your life. All right, so just going to throw that out there. All right, thank you so much for watching. Got to wrap it up here, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks so much for watching.